Today we are going to talk about faith and kenosis in spirituality. In my Satsang last week, that is on July 17th, 2022, I briefly introduced the phenomenon of kenosis. Since then, I have been getting several questions about it. It is becoming clearer since our intellectual minds want specific answers. Well, let's talk about intellectual minds. See, when I say a team of astronomers with the ESO, which is European Southern Observatory, discovered the distance between the closest black hole to Earth is 1,000 light years away, we are ready to believe. There is a number that describes it, that is making the information perceptible. Therefore, the finding is discernible, whether it makes sense or whether we understand, what light years is. Even if other scientists dispute the number, we're finding the numbers perceptible. For our mind, it really does not matter. As long as there is a number, there is a definition, a theory, something tangible, or something our sensory perceptions can experience as a reality, exist in a particular observation. If it is there, it is believable. Now, there is a reason why I say this, is because in Matthew 16:23, Jesus says to Peter, "For your thoughts are not the things of God, but the things of men." In other words, we must have the thoughts of God if we were to comprehend the mysteries of God. See, the thought of God is what is described as wisdom. The gateway to the wisdom is the mind of a child, according to Jesus. The wisdom of God is not as ordered as the intellect of an adult's mind. It actually is extraordinarily abstract. Well, let's go into it. See, when we admire nature, for instance, when we are looking at Niagara Falls, our mind is not caught up in how many gallons of water is dropping down per second. We are simply wonderstruck, observing the creation of God in real time. Our feelings take us beyond intellectual rationales. See, observing the mind of God is not any different. It goes over and beyond trying to figure out wisdom with our limited intellectual mind. It is simply observing, not figuring out. Interestingly, in the same sentence as in Matthew 16:23, Jesus calls Peter Satan for thinking like an intellectual man. Jesus says, "Get behind me, Satan, for your thoughts are not the things of God, but the things of men." Therefore, the intellectual mind is in direct conflict with the mind of God. Nothing more, nothing less. See, our institutional church is an intellectual model. Let's face it. Its teachings to the seculars are intellectual, based on absolute doctrines. See, whenever there is an absolute, whenever there is a definition, whenever there is a number, we are looking at something that is based on intellectual mind. It's not based on the wisdom of God. As Christian seculars, we are incapable of thinking like God. This is why spirituality is lacking in Christianity. See, invariably, all Christians, whether religious or seculars, we must be retrained and mentored to think like God. Our salvation depends on it. All right, let's get back to the discussion we are having today. Let's talk about Abraham. So when we talk about Abraham, let us talk about what is faith, what is kenosis, is there differences? If so, what are the differences? So let's look at it more from an intellectual angle as opposed to wisdom. See, intellectually speaking, I have come across brilliant and sophisticated definitions about faith in Christian books and discourses. Instead, I searched the internet for simple definitions about faith. This is what I found. It says complete trust, confidence, or reliance. Another definition says unquestioning belief that does not require proof or evidence. Then the third definition, it says allegiance to a person or thing or institution. Actually, it's loyalty. It's not faith. But the church says it is faith. Is questioning faith unfaithfulness? See, we are not questioning faith. We are questioning the definitions and intellectual dissertations about faith. Besides, Mother Mary questioned. Moses not only questioned, he took his questions further into debates, which in some situations, not agreeing with God altogether. And Moses did that. See, we are not questioning God. We are questioning an intellectual case which all of us must have the freedom to do. See, when we look at intellectual definitions about faith in Christianity, vagaries are astounding in these definitions. Obviously, because the mind of a man defined a Christian faith. Although in many the literatures and the teachings of the church, I come across the mysteries are defined as something that we need to unconditionally believe with faith. But they do acknowledge them as mysteries and they are not definable. Nonetheless, the vagaries exist. See, was Abraham the father of faith? I think Abraham's faith is beyond faith. It is kenosis. I don't think anyone's life in the Bible better explains kenosis as good as the life of Abraham. See, kenosis is not a belief that nurtures and governs our moral existence. It actually is an existential reality in the present moment. It is a conscious reality, absolutely unaffected by any definitions, any material embodiments, any material entanglement, thoughts. Kenosis is not a sensory experience. It is a witness of our pure consciousness. See, in Genesis 15, Abraham is promised of a great generation. 15:5, the angel brings Abraham outside and says to him, "Look towards heaven and count the stars, if you are able to do them." If you are able to count them. Then the angel says to him, "So shall your descendants be." See, Abraham counted the stars as he was told to do, because the word says, if you are able to count them, count. But in Genesis 15:12, a little further down, we read, Abraham was told to count the number of stars. during the daytime. See, counting the stars during the daytime is an intellectual absurdity, isn't it? See, in God's wisdom, counting the number of stars during the daytime is entirely possible, because in wisdom we do not count the numbers. We simply know the numbers. It only requires our wonderstruck as we look into the sky and be amazed at the wisdom of God. See, kenosis is a state of conscious awareness, otherwise known as pure consciousness. It is pure because it is unaffected by intellectual rationales. It is a transcendent conscious state in which human intelligence is completely subdued and has no influence in our being. Kenosis is absolutely unaffected by any material thoughts, embodiments, duality, or entanglements. It is a present moment reality in which only awareness of God is present. Simply stating, kenosis is the consciousness of nothingness. See, Abraham's faith was not a rational faith. In fact, it is beyond faith. See, Abraham in kenosis was not only aware of the joy of God in his human conditions. In other words, when he was asked to count the stars, he was doing so only because he was witnessing the joy of God during that present moment. When Abraham was asked to slaughter his own son at the altar, Abraham was not aware of what he was about to do. He took his only son to death only because he was witnessing the joy of God during that present moment. His intellect was not at play. Psalm 63, 5 and 6 reads, "My soul is satisfied as with a rich feast, and my mouth praises you with joyful lips. When I think of you on my bed and meditate on you." Kenosis is not about us. It is about God. Kenosis is really the emotions of God towards us as we witness His presence in the present moment, as we are looking at His face and observing how He enjoys us. That is what it is. See, in Hinduism, there are hundreds of legends about kenosis in which God is playful and joyful with us. God is playful with us like a little child. There is a scripture verse in Hinduism that describes God as a devotee to His devotees. Even contemporary saints such as Papa Ramdas describes the interlude of kenosis of God throughout his spiritual life. See, we secular Christians, we see God as an authority figure who sits on a throne of judgment, watching every single move we make. We are taught to fear God. We are taught to pray in reverence to an external God in heaven. We are taught to love Him as we fear Him. We are told it is our faith. Believe without question. We are clueless about God as He is a devotee to His own devotees. We don't know He is devoted to us. See, kenosis is the basis of all Hindu rituals. See, in Hinduism, deities have wives, they have families. So, Hindus celebrate their family members to make God joyful. They feed God in rituals, so God will be satisfied. They re-celebrate their weddings to make God aware of one of the happiest days in His being. See, we as Christians, we only know how to pray for joy and satisfaction and happiness for ourselves and our loved ones. We don't have that awareness that God is also having these emotions that He wants to share with us. Anyway, let us explore what we have in the church to understand God is devoted to His devotees. See, when in Christianity, when we read the stories about, say, Saint Padre Pio, Saint John of the Cross, Saint Teresa of Lisieux, we only look at them as exceptional people in a historical relevance. But if we observe their life in a mystical relevance, the phenomenon of kenosis becomes clear. See, about Saint Teresa of Lisieux, Father John F. Russell, a Carmelite monk, he writes, she was convinced that our sufferings in union with the sufferings and death of Jesus could help transform the world. Saint Teresa of Lisieux, in her sufferings, was not interested in her own healings. She was interested in kenosis, so that her sufferings could be acceptable to Jesus, so that Jesus unites her sufferings with His sufferings to transform the world. So in other words, it is not our emotions, but the emotions of God in union with our emotions, whether the emotions be joy or sufferings, transforms the universe around us. In the process of it, we also get to enjoy transformations. That is the spiritual mystery of kenosis. See, when we are looking at St. John of the Cross, he was physically abused and bullied by others in his community. But he was joyous in his sufferings subjected to him. We could easily observe the joy of God he witnessed in his encounters. That joy gave St. John of the Cross extraordinary fulfillment, even in the abuses he suffered. See, we can, in mystical relevance, we can witness kenosis. And kenosis is apparent in the lives of hundreds of Christian martyrs throughout history. Brothers and sisters, our life is not without trials. Sometimes they are so extreme, we even feel like ending our lives. When we feel that way, do we make an effort to witness the kenosis of Jesus in our lives, in our sufferings? Don't you think it is worth learning more about kenosis and spirituality so that our sufferings could become meaningful not only to ourselves but even to God? Let's move on. Let's look at kenosis in the Gospels. See, whether our emotions unite with the emotions of Jesus or not, Jesus is passionately making efforts to unite with us. That is his nature. Sometimes he reaches out to us, as he did with raising the widow's son from death. That is in Luke 7:11 through 17. See, when his compassion united with the sufferings of the widow, the son is brought back to life. But such moments are rare in the ministry of Jesus. In others, people witnessed the powers of Jesus and were wonderstruck by his emotions as they were going through their own sufferings or trials. The Gospels and the Church describe such encounters and the extraordinary emotions exchanged between them, between the people and Jesus, as faith. But it is not really that simplistic. The mystery of kenosis is further revealed in the miracles of Lazarus raised from death, as described in John 11:17 through 44. See, even on the first sentence, John 11:17, it is easily predictable that Jesus was going to raise Lazarus from death. Therefore, the spiritual mystery for us to learn is not in the miracle itself, it is in the series of events. See, when Jesus arrives in Bethany, Martha receives him first, saying, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. That was a respectful reception as their discussion goes into the theology as of the powers of the Son of Man. Then arrives Mary at the scene, saying to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Apparently, there is no difference verbatim. There is no difference in the words Martha and Mary used to greet Jesus. But Mary did something that Martha did not. Mary knelt at the feet of Jesus and looked at Jesus as Jesus saw her weeping. Then the Gospel says, Jesus was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. That is in John 11:33. Visualize what's going on here. Mary is looking at the glorious face of Jesus. She is becoming fully aware of the presence of Jesus and the powers of Jesus. For her, whether Jesus was the Son of Man was totally irrelevant. It is what she witnessed in the presence, what she witnessed in the face of Jesus. That is the only thing that moved Mary. And look at what happens. Jesus was also deeply moved by Mary's emotions. It says, the word says, he was greatly disturbed looking into the face of Mary. See, this is kenosis in display in real time. The next moment, Lazarus comes alive. See, Jesus clearly understood the emotions of Martha and Mary. Look at this. He clearly understood both of them. The words were exactly the same. Understanding was the same. So it is not what is intellectual that is making a difference here. Martha did not come into union with the emotions of Jesus. Mary did. Even in our trials, brothers and sisters, we must have that awareness that Jesus is also going through the same sufferings as we do. That is why he is Jesus. From then on, we need to strive with prayers and meditations to come into union with the sufferings of Jesus. In this meditative encounter, we will witness the joy of Jesus as He unites with our sufferings. We will witness the sufferings of Jesus as He encounters our sufferings. From then on, our sufferings will transform to benefit not only us, but the entire universe. Kenosis is about the union of our being with the being of Christ. It is not an intellectual order of exercise, such as faith and prayer. Faith is unidirectional. We feel certain way about the power of Jesus. It is the same as what Martha had towards Jesus. On the other hand, kenosis is bidirectional. It is the same as what Mary had towards Jesus. Kenosis is a bi-directional, emotional between Jesus and us. Well, I hope that answers. Thank you so much. God bless you.